An 18-year-old actress was fitted into a metal suit, built from hardened wood and spray-painted silver. It was rigid. She could barely move. And over 17 months of filming, it cut into her skin every single day. She bled in that suit. And the director kept filming. The film she was making, it would go on to inspire every AI movie ever made. It would directly create the design of C-3PO. It would predict, with extraordinary precision, what is happening right now with artificial intelligence. And it was made in 1927. This is Metropolis. And the director who made her bleed in that suit, the same year this film came out, he was called into a meeting with Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister. Goebbels offered him control of all German cinema. The director smiled, said he needed time to think, and boarded a train to Paris that same evening, selling his wife's jewellery to fund the escape. He never came back. This is the story of Metropolis. Fritz Lang had never seen anything like New York City. He sailed into the harbor in 1924, and looked up at the skyscrapers, and said, "I looked into the streets, the glaring lights and the tall buildings, and there I conceived Metropolis." He spent the next 3 years building a version of that city. Not as a celebration. As a warning. The story Lang told was this: a city divided in two. The wealthy elite live in towers above the clouds. The workers live underground, running machines they don't own, for people they will never meet. And the machines, as machines always do, eventually decide they don't need the workers anymore. In 1927, that was science fiction. In 2025, it has a different name. Lang made this film with 37,000 extras. It took 310 days and 60 nights to shoot. It cost more than 5 million Reichsmarks. Roughly $21 million today. It nearly bankrupted UFA, Germany's national film studio. And when it was finished, Paramount Pictures cut it from 153 minutes to 87. Without Lang's permission. They said it was too long. He never forgave them. Here is what this 1927 film invented. The robot you are looking at, built in 1927 from plastic, wood and silver paint, is the direct visual source for C-3PO. Ralph McQuarrie, the concept artist hired to design Star Wars, studied this image. He copied the proportions. The humanoid female form. The gold plating was his addition. Everything else. 1927, Ridley Scott's production designer confirmed that Metropolis was the primary visual reference for Blade Runner's cityscapes. James Cameron has cited it as the foundational text for the Terminator's world. The creators of the person who built it. In 2023, the World Economic Forum published a report estimating that AI would replace 85 million jobs by 2025. Fritz Lang filmed that scenario in 1927, not as a prediction, as a warning. The film's thesis, written in its final title card, is 7 words: the mediator between head and hands must be the heart. We are still waiting for that mediator. Bridget Helm was 18 years old when Fritz Lang cast her. She had never made a film. She wrote to Lang at 16 asking for a screen test. He gave her the dual lead role in the most expensive film in German cinema history. And then he made her wear a suit built from hardened plastic wood, shaped over a plaster cast of her own body. It was rigid. It had no flexibility. And over 17 months of filming, it cut and bruised her constantly. Here is what makes this more disturbing: the stiff, mechanical movements you see in this footage. They are not acting choices. They are the limits of a costume that physically prevented her from moving normally. She fainted during the transformation sequence because she could not get enough air inside the suit. The actor playing Frieder dislocated his thumb during shooting. Lang gave him 30 minutes to recover. Then called him back to the set. Helm later described the shoot as, in her words, the worst experience of her life. She went on to make more than 30 films. None of them are remembered. This one, the one that cut her, exhausted her, and nearly suffocated her, is the only reason her name still exists, and the character she played? A robot built to look like a woman. Created to control people. Used. And then destroyed by the men who made her. Fritz Lang had what his biographers call legendary cruelty. He made actors repeat scenes until they could not stand. He filmed crowd sequences by positioning extras in cold water and forcing them to run through it for hours. He once had an actor fall to his knees so many times over 2 days that the man could barely walk. He said afterward that it was exactly the shot he needed. Lang's motto, spoken openly on set, was, "If it costs something, it's worth something." The film he spent 3 years making nearly destroyed Germany's national film studio. Paramount cut it without his permission. Critics called it, in the New York Times, a technical marvel with feet of clay. H.G. Wells called it, quite the silliest film. It flopped. And then, 6 years later, something happened that nobody expected. Hitler's Minister of Propaganda summoned Lang to his office. Goebbels said, "The Führer and I have seen your films. The Führer has made clear that you are the man who will give us the National Socialist film." He offered Lang the most powerful position in German cinema. Lang looked at the clock on Goebbels's wall. All he could think about was getting out of that building. He smiled. Said he needed time to think. Left. Went to the bank, arrived too late. Sold his wife's jewellery instead. And boarded a train to Paris that same evening. He never returned to Germany. The woman who wrote Metropolis was Fritz Lang's wife, Thea von Harba. She wrote the novel in 1925. She wrote the screenplay. Every worker uprising in this film, every speech about justice, every prophecy about what technology does to human beings. She wrote it. And then, in 1932, she joined the Nazi Party. Here is the part nobody tells. Von Harba did not join to oppress people. She was in love with a young Indian man, 17 years younger than her, who had come to Germany to study. As the Nazi Party rose, he became a target. Von Harba joined the party, to use her status, her fame, to protect him, to keep him safe in a country that was becoming murderous toward anyone it classified as foreign. She spent the war with a portrait of Hitler on one wall of her office, and a portrait of Gandhi on the other. Lang fled Germany in 1933. Von Harba stayed. She wrote films for the Nazi propaganda machine. Lang went to Hollywood and spent the next 2 decades making anti-Nazi films. They never collaborated again. The film they made together, the greatest science fiction film in history, was now beloved by the regime that destroyed their marriage. Hitler called Metropolis his favorite film. Lang spent the rest of his life trying to explain why that was not his fault. In 1927, Metropolis premiered in Berlin at 153 minutes, Paramount cut it to 87 minutes for the American release. 2 of the 3 original camera negatives were destroyed in that process. For 80 years, the full version of Metropolis was considered lost forever. And then, in 2008, a film archivist in Buenos Aires mentioned to a visiting researcher that he had once seen a very long version of Metropolis. Very long. 2.5 hours. Fernando Pena, the researcher, tracked down the print. It had been sitting in the archives of a government arts organization since the late 1980s. Unlogged. Unwatched. In 2010, the restored version of Metropolis The closest to Lang's original that will ever exist. Premiered at the Berlin International Film Festival. 83 years after it was made. In the same city. Where Lang fled on a train to Paris. Rather than serve the men who loved his film. Metropolis was made in 1927. It was cut without permission. It flopped. The woman who wrote it joined the Nazis. The man who directed it fled them. The actress who embodied it called it the worst experience of her life. And 80 years later, a single surviving print was found in Buenos Aires. If this story changed how you see what's happening right now. With AI. With automation. With the people running machines they don't own. For people they'll never meet. Subscribe, because next week, we're looking at the film that the FBI spent years trying to destroy. And the man who made it never set foot in America again. That's Charlie Chaplin. And it is darker than this.